need to tally your notes because you have the notes. So 8.1 is right triangle trig and applications. Homework 13, 14, 15, and 16 all go with chapter 8, and they're all out of the textbook. Remember, if you're not doing your homework, you're also not eligible to do a retake, okay? Homework 13 is due next Tuesday. I highlighted this in yellow because, in my opinion, this one is kind of tricky, but I still want you to try it. The majority of these questions are word problems, though, okay, which is the majority of your test also. The test for chapter 8 is after spring break. I do not know that date by heart. I'll have to look at Canvas, but it's posted. Okay, so real quick, SOHCAHTOA, who remembers that from geometry? So hopefully you remember this, but I did run into quite a few kids who don't remember. So SOH means opposite and hypotenuse. So if you're using sine, that's opposite and hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent and hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite and adjacent. Now, the hypotenuse will always be across from your 90-degree angle. This never changes. Okay? But adjacent and opposite do change depending upon what angle you're talking about. And in this example, we're referencing angle A. So let's go ahead and put a little X right there. Okay, so this is adjacent to angle X, and this side is opposite of angle X. But if I move here, then this will become opposite, and this is adjacent. So it really just depends on if we're talking about angle A or angle C. That's going to determine which side is opposite and which side is adjacent. But this will always be your hypotenuse. So let's fill this in. You got a couple blanks. Capital letters are angles. So fill that in. There should be a blank in your notes. So if it is a capital letter, I'm talking about an angle. But if it's a lowercase letter, I'm talking about a side. Now, when you're trying to find an angle, we have to use the inverse. So I like to think, because angles are inside of the triangle, I like to think inside inverse.
We don't have that.
You don't have that there?
Oh, yeah.
You do.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, this is the second bullet point. So it says, so in order to find an angle, you might want to highlight or circle angle inverse, and we'll talk about this later. The last thing that's really important, now that you're back together with your calculator, go ahead and turn it on real quick. At the very top, do you see a DEG highlighted? It should be in little bitty tiny letters. It should say DEG. That stands for degree mode. Everything we do from here on out will be in degree mode. Nothing else will be in radians. So it's important, and I think most of your calculators are in degree mode because that's the default. But if by chance it says RAD, that means it's in radian mode, and I can help you change it. And you'll know that as we continue because it'll tell you. All right, so let's hit it. So example 1, everything we do will be solving a triangle. Solving means find everything you don't know. So I'm going to start by drawing a picture. So I have my right triangle. It's telling me that angle C is 90 degrees. And then this is I'm going to make capital A is on the, and capital B is at the bottom. The other thing to keep in mind is that the side opposite of the angle is lowercase. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in. So do you see how we have capital A up here? So this angle is capital A. That means across from that would be little bitty a. So this is little bitty a. And then across from big B is little bitty b. And then across from angle C is little bitty c. Okay. So let's start filling in our information. So it told us that angle, or that little bitty a is 7. So let's put a 7 right here. It also told us that angle B is 50. Let's put a 50 right here. So we need to figure out what we don't know. So what we don't know is the measure of angle A. We also don't know the length of side B. And we also don't know the length of side C. All right, so let's start off by finding A. Who remembers, what do the angles inside of a triangle add up to? 180. So angle A is going to equal 180 minus 90 minus 50. So go ahead, figure out what you get when you take 180, and you can use a calculator. Wow. I know you wasn't even gonna use it, were you? You was about to do it without a calculator. So you should get 40 degrees. All right, so now let's look at angle or little bitty b. So I like to use, personally, whenever I'm trying to find the other information, I use what they told us. So this is what they told us. They told us that this is 50 degrees. So let me erase this part here. And I want you to label the three sides of your triangle in relationship to angle B. So this would be opposite. What would the 7 be? Is that adjacent, or is, I did that last period too. That is not opposite. That's the hypotenuse. All right, what would 7 be? Is 7 adjacent or opposite to angle B? Adjacent. And then across from that would be opposite. So what I'm going to start off finding is I want to find this side right here. This is the side I'm going to start off finding. And if I look at that side, I know that that is opposite and I know adjacent. So if I'm trying to find the opposite and I know adjacent, what trig ratio uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So we're going to have the tangent of 50 degrees equals opposite, which is little bitty b, over adjacent. And you can make this a proportion if you want. Go ahead and cross multiply that and solve that for little b. Everything we do is going to be to the 10th place. So when you cross multiply it, if you go this direction, you have b equals, and then you go this direction, 7 times the tangent of 50 degrees. So in your calculator, type in 7 times tangent of 50 degrees. And round it to the 10th place. And I got 8.3. All right, so at this point, you have some options to find little c. And it doesn't matter which way you do it. You could do Pythagorean theorem, which would be c squared equals 7 squared plus 8.3 squared. That's one option. Or we can do trig. And if I do trig, if I know that 7 is adjacent and I'm trying to find the hypotenuse, what trig ratio uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Cosine. So that would be cosine 50 degrees equals adjacent over hypotenuse. C equals, so when you cross multiply it, I'm going to go ahead and put this over 1. When you go this direction, that would be C times the cosine of 50. My S looked like a 5. Equals, and you go this way, 7. So you would divide both sides, and you would get C equals 7 divided by cosine 50. So what I want you to understand is that both of these methods get you the same answer. And I really don't have a preference of which way you go. Lyric, you awake? You awake? It don't look like it. Let's hold that head on up.
Wait. How would a squared b squared, how would that be 7 over cosine 50?
It's just two different methods. So we can use the Pythagorean theorem, which applies for a right triangle, which is c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Or you can use the trig ratio. Both methods give you the same result. Yes, Anna?
So we're using, you said the little letters are the size. So we're
Mhm.
finding,
Little c. I know, and I know I probably shouldn't use c because a lowercase c and a capital C look the same. And a lot of times we do use c, but yes. But I'm looking for a lower, because we already know what capital C is. Capital C is 90 degrees.
and then we would have to, we already have A.
And we already have A, and we figured out what B was. So we can either do the Pythagorean theorem or we could do cosine.
So when we want to find the, but I thought B was 50 degrees.
So I'm using side lengths though. That's on the outside. So that's an angle. I'm not going to use,
So we have to find the side
yes,
before we find the angle.
no. We'll do some more examples.
Okay.
I think hopefully it'll click a little bit. But what did you all get for little c? 10.9. Did anybody do this method? I'm just curious. Did anybody do this method? All right, and you both got 10.9, right? All right. So again, on the test, I don't care which way you go. I'm just showing you two different methods to get the same result. All right, let's move on to question 2. So question 2, now we're using different letters, B, C, D. So I'm going to draw my right triangle. This time it's telling us that B is 90. So I have to put my capital B where my 90-degree angle is. And then C at the top, D at the bottom. It also told me, does everyone see how this is a capital C? Or it says C is 43 degrees. So that 43 is going to go inside.
With the letters, does it matter which one goes where?
No. I always put whatever comes first in the alphabet on top,
So if
between the last two.
So if it's capitalized, it's an angle, and if it's lowercase, it's the side.
Exactly.
So, actually, let's do this part.
Yeah, let's do this one. All right, and then we know that little b is 14. Where would little b fall? Between what two letters? Yeah, and that's a side.
Oh,
So I'm going to put that on the outside. Okay. And we got to find the missing pieces. So what are the things we don't know? We don't know the measure of capital D, which is an angle. I also don't know the length of side D or the length of side C. Now, of these three things, the easiest to find would be the angle, because you know two angles. So picking up your calculators, we know that angle D is going to equal 180 minus 90 minus 43.
you said what?
And you should get 47 degrees. Who got 47 degrees? Okay, so now we need to figure out, do we want to find little c or little d next? So which one do you want to find? Little d. All right, little d, first of all, is right here. Okay, and if this is my angle, is this side opposite or adjacent? Adjacent. So if I'm trying to find this, and this is adjacent, what trig ratio uses adjacent and hypotenuse? So I'm going to use cosine to find side D. So cosine of 43 degrees equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Let's put this over 1, cross multiply, and you should get that D equals 14 times the cosine of 43 degrees. Go ahead and type that in.
I don't even get it, so I think I don't.
And I did these last year in my notes. I'm gonna make sure that I typed it in right. So I got 10.2. Yes. So it's right next to this angle. Do you agree that this is right next to it? So that's adjacent. I'm adjacent to this angle that they told us. It's adjacent to that angle, so it's adjacent.
So you'll never look at the 90 degree angle, right? It's just
No, we cannot use the 90. You have to use either this angle or this. So we could have used the 47 since we know that that's 47. But what if I typed it in my calculator wrong? I always, if I can, I use the given information. So I'm going to use this 43. This is adjacent. This is hypotenuse, which is why I did a cosine. So I get 10.2. So now, whenever you know two sides, you have two choices. So I'm going to set it up for you again. To find the last side, we could do Pythagorean theorem, which in this example would be b squared equals c squared plus d squared. Because this time, little b is my hypotenuse. So we could do that method, okay? I'm going to set it up for you. I probably wouldn't use this method, but I'm going to set it up for you just in case you want to use this method. So that would be 14 squared equals, and I don't know c, and I know this is 10.2. So you would have to do some solving. That's one option to get you the third side. Or we can use trig. So now I'm trying to find this side, which is what? If this is my angle, is this opposite or adjacent to the 43 degree angle? Opposite. So again, I like to stick with the given. So opposite and hypotenuse would be a sine. So that would be sine 43 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse. And when you cross multiply it, this is what you would get. So again, I don't care which way you go. You got two different options, and they both will give you the correct answer. So you pick the method you want to use.
So if we use 47, we can use 47, right?
We could use 47.
And would that be
Same thing.
adjacent around 5?
That would be adjacent, yeah, because that little c is adjacent to the 47. It's opposite the 43, but it's adjacent to the 47. Yes.
So, if you use the 47, you would use a different,
You would have to do a different one, yeah.
but you still get the same answer.
You still get the same answer. I'm going to use 43 because that's what was given to me.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
But you have a choice to pick whichever one you want.
Yeah.
So either way, though, if you do your math correctly, you should get something really close to 9.5. What did you get? What did your calculator say? Well, that's good. We close. Depending upon which method, it might be a little bit different, but if we're close, like if we're on the block, then we're okay. You on the block, you know. You in the same street. That's still close.
Would you rather have 9.37? Can't do 9.5.
All right. Now let's go to example. I'm actually going to skip over example 3 and give you all a chance to do that one on your own. Let's go to example 4. Almost finished for today. I'm going to give you some time to practice. So first thing we're going to do is draw out our triangle. So now we're back to ABC. So it's told, see here how it said that C is my right angle. So I have to put the C here. And then I always put, you know, whatever comes first in the alphabet on top. So this time they told us, all they told us was 2 sides. They didn't give us any angles. Okay. So they told us that little bitty a is 11. Where am I going to put little bitty a? In between what 2 angles is little bitty a? So I'm going to put 11 right here. Then they told us that little b is 15. Between what 2 angles am I putting little bitty b? Okay. So I think we should start off by finding little bitty c. And that's pretty easy to find because what are we going to use?
A squared, B squared.
Yep. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So C squared equals 11 squared plus 15 squared. I'm going to let you all, you do have to take the square root of your answers. So I'll give you a couple minutes to finish that out. So I'm finding little c. I know a little c and a capital C look the same, but right now I'm trying to find little c because I already know that big C is 90. So I'm trying to find little c. Now, I would probably just type this all in my calculator under a square root. And you should get that C is close to 18.6. Now, I'm not going to put that on my diagram, though. I'm just going to leave that off to the side because I'm not going to use that to find my angle A or B. So here's my recommendation. In this example, I would stick with what they told us because you know how it is in math. If it's a 3-part question, let's say I messed up with this side. Now I'm about to mess up everything. So I'm going to use 11 and 15 to find the last 2. So I'm going to go with angle A next. So this is my angle. What would 11 be? Is 11 opposite, adjacent, or the hypotenuse?
Opposite.
So put an OPP. What about that 15? Adjacent. So what trig ratio do you think uses opposite and adjacent? It's killing me that we looking at that front page when we literally done talked about this. It's tangent. So make sure y'all know that because you know you're not getting no formulas or nothing. You got to know that part. So tangent of angle A is opposite over adjacent. And if you go back to what I said at the beginning, if you're looking for an angle, you have to use the inverse, inside inverse. So A equals the inverse tangent of 11 over 15. When you look at your calculator, above tangent should be an inverse tangent in green. So you have to hit the green key first and then hit tangent in order to get an inverse. You have to hit the green key first and then hit tangent. So one of these I typed in wrong. I'm going to go ahead and do this one again to make sure. I don't know which one it was. Yes. If you're looking for something inside, angles use the inverse. So going back to the first page, here it says if you're trying to find an angle measure, we have to use the inverse. So anytime you're looking for an angle, we have to hit that green key first. All right, so when you type that in, I got 36.3. Anybody else get 36.3? So we know 2 angles. It's easy to find the last one. You got two options. Option one would be to do the inverse tangent. So you could do B equals, it's going to equal the inverse tangent of 15 over 11. That's one option. Or you could do triangle sum, which is 180 minus 90 minus 36.3. Either way, you get the same answer.
Since we already got both angles, we could just subtract, right?
That was my second option I put up there. I said you could either do the inverse tangent or you could do 180 minus 90 minus 36.3. So you have two options now to get the same answer. So if I type in inverse tangent of 15 over 11, I get 53.7, yep. But if you do your subtraction, you also get 53.7.
So we need to have two angles before we use that.
To do triangle sum, yes. So if you're doing triangle sum, you need to know two angles. And if you're trying to do Pythagorean theorem, you need to know two sides.
Right.
So angle B is 53.7. So there is two different ways, I'm going to go ahead and highlight, that you can find that last piece of information.
So if your stuff doesn't add to 180,
You know you did something wrong. All right, one more together, and the last two are on your own. All right, let's look at 5. Let's set up our triangle. And we have C is our right angle. And then this is A, and this is B. So this time, little a is 4.5, so that goes here. Little c is 12. We got to figure out the rest. So this time, when we're trying to find, they told us the hypotenuse. So 12 squared equals 4.5 squared plus b squared.
to get the other side.
So that would be 144 equals 4.5 squared. And I'm not going to round anything. Go ahead and subtract that from both sides. So 144 minus 20.25 is 123.75. And that equals, b squared, not b. Take the square root. And you should get 11.1 for b. For little b. So lowercase b is 11.1.
So that would be in between A and C.
That would be between A and C. But I'm not going to put that on my diagram. I'm going to leave that off to the side. So now we're going to find angle A. So angle A, if this is the angle I'm trying to find right here, what is the 4.5? Is that opposite, adjacent, or the hypotenuse? The 4.5? Opposite. And what's the 12? Hypotenuse. What trig ratio uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. So angle A is going to be the inverse sine, because remember, inside inverse of 4.5 over 12. Go ahead and type that in your calculator. Gotta hit the green key first, or the second function if you're trying to find an angle. So I'm just gonna say it's 22 degrees. And then for the last piece, so this equals A.
And now I need to find angle B.
And now we need to find angle B. And then for angle B, you have two options. for angle B, because this is adjacent. Everybody look at the screen. 4.5 is adjacent to angle B, so I wouldn't use a sine. I would use what? If it's adjacent and I know hypotenuse.
Cosine.
Cosine. So I'm going to give you two options. You can either type in your calculator inverse cosine of 4.5 over 12, or you can do 180 minus 90 minus 22. You get the same answer. And you should get 68 degrees. All right. So I want everybody to do example 3 and example 6. Raise your hand and I will check your answers when you're done.